Hi, my name's Ryan Shade. If you clicked on this video, it means you're interested in seeing how I made the custom collectible Crash Bandicoot statue. Now let me start off by saying that this is not my original design. I'm using references of a photo I found on Facebook. I thought it was a really cool design, and today I'm going to replicate it as best I can. For this build, I'm using 18mm ply. It's a very lightweight and durable material. I was originally going to use MDF, but I didn't want it flexing, and I didn't realize at the time how much heavier it actually is than a plywood. Okay, so first up with this build, I am taking the sides that have been cut and marking out exactly where they need to go. It's fairly straightforward, but from here I can calculate exactly where I need to drill the holes. So at the moment, I'm down on my parents' farm, and I just went for a little bit of a walk around, and in a couple of minutes I found this fantastic log that was lying around. Now the plan is, at the moment, I'm going to chop an inch or so of it off, then I'm going to hollow it out to a degree, and then neaten it up a little bit, make it look nice, and that's going to be our base. This log took about an hour to cut through. I was really hoping it would fit on the bandsaw or drop saw, but unfortunately it was just too big. I think overall sanding both sides of the log took around 4 hours, but I'm really happy with how it turned out, and it really makes the project more unique. To remove the grain quickly and efficiently, I used an 80 grit belt on the belt sander, and I'm now following up with an orbital sander using a 120 grit sandpaper to remove any deep scratches made by the rougher belt and give it a nice smooth finish. Now I'm marking out a rough circle in the center of the base. I'm going to use my router to remove some of the material to allow the threaded rod to be bolted to the base. I was really worried that the timber was going to be too tough and the router blade would snap. To avoid this happening, I started at a minimal depth and did multiple passes until the hole was deep enough, and I was happy with it. Dad has a really large drill press in his workshop. It was critical at this point that I use it, otherwise the shaft that supports the entire project wouldn't be completely vertical and I'd essentially have to remake the base. Whilst I was using the drill press, I also drilled all of the holes in the boxes. Once I had a pilot hole in the top and bottom of the main box pieces, I just drove screws in by hand. After this, I cut the stencil I had drawn into pieces so I could trace the shapes and cut the timber. I also sketched the design for the feathers onto a thin piece of ply and cut everything out on the bandsaw. So I'm back at my apartment in Canberra. I've only got a little bit of cleanup to do on the eyes and the lips. I'm going to do some beveling. To do that, I've got a Dremel and I've got this awesome flexible attachment, which I think is going to make it a lot easier to do. After this, I've only got the feathers and the painting. You would have seen earlier that I tried to make the feathers out of a flat plywood. It didn't really work, they splintered, so I'm going to try and make them out of the thicker stuff, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, so it's taken me about an hour to sand down the nose using the rough pad on the drill and the finer pad on the Dremel, but I finally have a shape for the nose that I'm happy with. And now that means I can continue on and carve out the lines where the teeth need to be on the mask, and just a little groove in under the sags on the eyes, just to add a little bit of depth and make it look better. To finalise the boxes before painting, I glue the parts together to form a stronger bond and then putty over the screws and fill any gaps that remain in the build. So as you can probably see, I've skipped ahead a little bit in terms of painting, but all I've done is given it an undercoat that will just seal it a little bit. I'm not going to sand it, it's left a really nice wood finish here, which I think is going to blend the boxes a little bit better. Also what I've done is carve all of the feathers. Now as you can see here, my first attempt was with the 18mm plywood still. It was very difficult to sand and cut out. I then moved to balsa wood, which was very easy to do, and I'm going to show you how I did that with the beard. Also what I've done is embed 2 sets of magnets at the front into the timber. That's what's going to be what's holding on the mask. So I've got these 2 larger magnets which are going to be glued onto the mask when we're done, and then the mask is just going to clip on like that. So now I'm going to start working on the boxes. I'm going to do the red box first. Now as you can see from the reference picture, the outer rim is a lighter red than the inner triangles. What I'm going to do for that is I'm going to paint the lighter color on both boxes first, then mask it off and do the dark triangles in the middle before detailing them with the yellow paint. The blue tape that you can see me applying here is a simple safety guard to avoid getting paint on the other box. Getting any red even onto the white box before painting the green over it would mean more coats and just be a waste of time. feathers I was painting from the center out with more random brush strokes to try and give a base texture similar to a feather. I ended up going over it almost completely later on as I chose a different style towards the end. I had another look at my reference and realised that all the teeth were individually cut out and built up more, instead of just being carved into the base mask. To do this for my mask, I cut and sanded each tooth out of balsa wood and then painted them with white gloss enamel. Now that all the main facial features are painted, I can glue them all on. I'm not gluing the teeth in just yet because I'd like them to stay as a full gloss, and I'm about to coat the mask and the base with a semi-gloss clear finish. To paint the final detail on the box, I begin by masking off the areas that I want to keep, then give it 2 coats of paint and peel off the tape to reveal the pattern. The beard was carved from balsa wood. I started with a basic shape and sanded down the edges with the Dremel. Then I did the sharper corners with a Stanley knife. To do the lettering on the side of each box, I just made and traced a stencil onto each side and then painted it with the yellow paint. Off camera, I painted all the detail for the feathers and beard, glued them into place along with the teeth, screwed the boxes onto the base, added hooks and hung the original PlayStation controller. Finally, I can place the mask, and this build is complete. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing to Shady200. There's plenty of good videos on the channel at the moment, and there's plenty more to come.